Steadily it rises.
Hey, it's ODB, the Lincoln Addict, back with another listing review. I want to apologize. The last video I did, I had every intention to have that video uploaded shortly after I recorded it, but as you might be able to tell with my voice, I'm a little under the weather. Folks in my family have been as well. So the little bit of editing that I had to do to get that video finished, I wasn't able to do on Tuesday evening. So unfortunately, that video is technically going to go live or on YouTube right after the listing review ended. I went to grab the link and I was like, wow, it just had ended. So there's still a lot of nuggets in there. So I think many of you will find some value, but I'm super excited. Now, if you happen to watch that video, again, I apologize because my voice, I've got a little bit of a cough going on, but I mentioned that I'm going to be reviewing this 62 Lincoln Continental Coyote swapped car. Now, what I want to do here is show you briefly so you can get an image. You probably saw the thumbnail, but this car at the time of the recording is about 22 hours left. I may try to upload it tonight just in case anybody happens to see it and is curious about this particular car. But what we're basically looking at is a Coyote powered 62 Lincoln Continental. So what I want to do is jump back over here to my typical stuff I'll walk through. Basically, I want to talk a little bit about the production numbers. I'll go over a few key items. And then I really want to spend the time on talking about how nice of a resto mod this car is. We'll wrap it up with any potential things to consider about this particular car. But we can see in 62, we have 27,849 sedans. And then, of course, the convertibles were at 3,212. I didn't pull the Haggerty evaluation. I did forget to grab that screenshot, just trying to kind of put this together pretty quick. But I will say that this car is going to be in a league of its own because it's a high-end resto mod. The Lincoln registry is down currently, so I wasn't able to find any information there. I like to go over this information. The VIN number is at the top. The 2 represents 62 for that year. Of course, the 82 is the sedan. The H is the typical MEL 430, which, of course, even though it doesn't have that anymore, that's still going to be in the VIN number. And then the last 5 digits here are the 29610. So that represents the 29,610th built for that model year out of a total of 31,061. What does that tell us? That it was built at the end of that model year. So we're talking July of 62, right at the tail end, as we get, as Lincoln Mercury gets ready to ramp up, of course, the new models within a month or two. The VIN plate decoded. Now, I always give kudos to Bring a Trailer. This is the second one I've seen. I don't believe that they broke this down. But, of course, the 53A represents the 4-door sedan. We have the color T. Now, someone in the notes or the comments, rather, had mentioned because they have some full resto mod photos, they mentioned, wow, I wish it was still painted black, but it still looks amazing. Although, ironically, the letter T represents the factory color champagne. So that overall kind of color, although it's not exactly the same, it was carried through with the resto mod. Of course, it has been repainted. The trim is 64 beige. The date we'll see on the next slide, 23G. Now, I did realize today I had a typo in the past. This is my 62 kind of template. And in the past, I had 52, and I think on maybe one car I mentioned Denver, but I double-checked 52 DSO, of course, would have been LA for Los Angeles. The axle and the trans are pretty standard, and I usually don't dive too much into that. If we take a look at the little chart that I created, we can easily see July is for the letter G. Just to remind everybody, the letter I is not represented because it could be confused with a number 1, and an eagle eye viewer mentioned that in the past, so I appreciate that. And of course, I cross-reference that with the books that I have. So here's the thing. So July would have been G, and 23 is the day of the month. So July 23rd, not 1961, but it would have been again the tail end of the 62 production. So it would have been 723 of 62, and that coincides with 29,610 at the tail end of that production. Now, in the past, my notes, this bullet point, the second bullet point, I usually mention production ran from late August 61 till I think I've said early July, but this proves right here that the production was still up and running even midway towards the tail end of July. So it could have even ran to the very beginning of August, because as you could see there, there's still a couple thousand, 1,500 or so cars to be built, if that makes sense. So the pros of the listing, what I want to do is jump back over here and take a look at this particular car. Now, I will say, yes, it does say alumni here. Okay, there's a comment in the comment section that's, the gentleman says, wow, I'm surprised this car's been kind of tossed around, if you will, on Bring a Trailer. They do go on to say that there were some extenuating circumstances on why that car did not sell in the past. So, there's no reason to speculate there. Deals do fall through, whether it's financing or someone's finances in general, but really that's neither here nor there. The bottom line is you have an opportunity to score this car. I want to go through some of the photos, and then again, I'll jump back over and kind of highlight some of the pros and cons now, or the things to consider rather. The biggest thing that I will tell you about this car is it is a resto mod. That can mean different things to different people, but when you're talking about suspension, brand new Coyote engine, new trans, and kind of the aesthetics of the original car, with, of course, some billet aluminum wheels and some white wall tires, you've got a kind of a true resto mod for the most part, right? This car is very well done, okay? I do believe that it's going to sell easily over six figures, but you can see right now it's at $90,000, and we're going to take a look and see why. Now, for many of you, you're going to be potentially automatically turned off, and you go, hey, I want an original car. Absolutely. I'll still cover some nuggets in here that you may appreciate. We can see on the interior, I'm a big fan, as my friend Tony Bolin, aka Boss Bolin, is, of this, what we refer to as a biscuit pattern interior. You don't see these as much, but certainly with the resto mod, I think it's done very, very well. So kudos to those folks that oversaw this one. And of course, the builder is listed in the first paragraph. We can see the great thing about this car as well is it retains much of the aesthetics of the original car. Now, sure, you see the airlift controller that's going to allow you to control the air suspension. We do see the aftermarket air condition. What they've done is they placed those controls underneath the factory vents. I appreciate that, because again, you're retaining the aesthetics there. They left the factory radio, which again is a fantastic thing. We can see, of course, it has the decoded digital gauges. That's going to be kind of a standard thing when you start swapping to a newer fuel-injected engine, simply because it's plug and play for the most part. It's going to give you your RPMs, your mile per hour, your clock, the fuel level with the sending unit, and things like that. So those are going to be key. Now, one thing is the odometer only shows 88 miles. So, whether they built this car to kind of make a profit or they built it for a client and he wants to move it, whatever the case is, you're getting basically a brand new engine, a brand new transmission. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. The total mileage is unknown, which again is really a moot point, because, if this car had 80,000 miles on it, you're getting a brand new car, to a certain extent, right? We can slice and dice that a little bit. The 5.0 liter Coyote V8. So a lot of folks don't know. I don't know ins and outs of Coyote engines, but I think most of us know a Coyote engine is a newer Ford engine. It's a V8, and those are highly sought after for these motor swaps in these cars. It includes power by the hour wiring harness. So any kind of builder is going to realize you got to have, a nice wiring for these newer style cars, aluminum radiator, so on and so forth. We can see underneath the car. Here's the key thing. You can't click on this image here, but I will tell you, of course, it's listed there. Build receipts total $100K, and that can be viewed in the gallery. There are also videos. I'm not going to click on them. This car sounds amazing. They cruise it around. He shows that it's a cold start by touching the exhaust, which you would never want to do, obviously, if it's a hot, warm car, right? Let's take a look. 62, we still had the white on the front for the turn signals. We've got that iconic, what I refer to as the rectangle grille. That's how I remember it. That's going to come in key here in just a moment, though, so stick with me. The other great thing about this car is you have more of a hot rod Lincoln stance to it. So not everyone likes air suspension. I totally get it. But there are different ways to do the suspension. In this case, the car essentially has more of what we refer to as a raked stance. If you think about raking leaves, right, you've got a rake and it has like that stance, if you will, the angle of a rake as you're raking. You've got a little bit lower in the front, but you're not super low. This car is not, quote, laid out flat on the ground, which many people do with their Lincolns, right? But it's done tastefully, and I think that's going to also appeal to someone that's going to potentially want to own this car. Now, I will tell you this at first glance. If you're not someone that looks at these cars every day, you may not notice this, but I do like it. I'm a fan of the 61, 62, and 63 rear trims. And if you look closely, what we can see is the trim on this car, which again, my magic mouse does not like when I zoom in. The rear trim is of a 61. It is an easy swap. Technically, why they did that, it could have been just aesthetics, but I think for the most part, no one's going to notice unless you're kind of a Lincoln addict, so to speak. But I do think it looks really, really good. The paint looks amazing. The wheels and tires, again, that's going to be preference. It's kind of like paint on a wall. If you don't like it, you could change it. If you wanted to go back and maybe run a 15, if that's something that would, be to your liking, certainly you can. Now, we can see here, this is something I need to point out, because in that lead-in photo, I think the car is potentially raised a little bit, but this is going to be the lower stance there. So you can see where it's tucking the rear wheel some, right? Now, you have to keep in mind, too, these cars were low from the factory, and I'll talk more about that in the future. The way the transmission tunnel is, you typically have a lot of leg room, which is fantastic. But, from the factory, it's tucking a little bit of a hubcap, aka wheel cover. So this, again, has a great stance, and I really, really like it. Want to reinforce, I'm not affiliated whatsoever with the builder. I do not know who it is, but whoever did this car did it very, very tastefully for a resto mod. Another great thing about this listing is you've got this very rustic background with great lighting, so that's going to make the car look really, really good. And I say that because if you look at the reflection here, when it's inside, you've got this beautiful kind of epoxy-looking floor. It makes the rear bumper look pretty bad off, but that luckily is just a reflection as far as I can tell, because we did see this, of course, outside. You can see the hood still is forward opening. The sedan, of course, is going to have the typical, it's going to have the deck lid where it opens the typical way on any sedan or any coupe, if you will. Only the convertible opens backwards, if that makes sense, or if it has been modified. I do want to jump around to some of the photos here. We could take a look at, they give a lot of good detailed photos. You look at the bumper and you go, wow, it looks really, really nice. You'd be hard pressed to find perfect on all of these cars. There's so much stainless. There's so much trim. If you look at these peak moldings, for instance, right here, you may see a dent or a ding. You may see some kind of scratches. The good news is if you ever wanted to go and have these high-speed polished and have some work done to them, you certainly can. But they do a great job kind of highlighting a lot of that. And I'm a fan of these cars not being 100% perfect, because if you buy this car, heck, you're going to want to drive it. You're going to want to take it to some local cruise-ins, take it to some car shows. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect, in my opinion. We can see here, these might be Detroit Deviant. I know he makes various different glass covers, if you will, or plastic. And you can see the Lincoln logo. That is, of course, not factory, but it's a very, very nice touch for this resto mod. These are Raceline wheels. And what you will see is you've got two little screws here that you can take out. These are a little bit easier than some of the other wheels to take that front or that center cap, if you will, off so you can get to the lug nuts. I will talk about the interior just for a couple minutes. Again, I love this interior. It's reminiscent of the 56 and 57 Mark II, but it is a pattern that Lincoln offered. Whether some of this is original or not, like you can see, for instance, here, they're kind of showcasing it's not perfect, but I guarantee you could probably clean this up if you wanted to. But again, we're kind of splitting hairs at this point. In the video, they do show the wipers working. Of course, with a new modern engine, you're not going to have some of the old school stuff, right? With the original wipers running off of the power steering pump and things like that. So you've got a couple switches here under the dash for that. This may be the Decoded Digital or something else for the car and whatnot. We can also see here's your airlift controller. They're one of the two big players in the market. The great thing about these is sometimes you can control it with your phone. You can use this little pad. You can set it to auto go to a particular height. That makes it easy for someone that may not be accustomed to air suspension. We can see here, what does this tell us? We've got the brake. So the brake pad, or not pad, but the brake pedal, rather. You can see a little bit of wear here, but again, this is a newer style car because everything's been redone. You do have a new modern pedal because these are going to be what we refer to as drive-by-wire, not drive-by cable. What does that mean is essentially back in, I don't know, I think it was the 90s, OEM started saying, hey, when you're whether you know this or not, when you're pushing your foot on the pedal, it's sending a signal on, hey, here's where the throttle should be. The computer's running a car, yada, yada, yada. It still blows my mind that not everybody knows that. If you really want to look into something fun, look into the Cybertruck. It is, my friends, steer by wire. Yeah, you got that right. Oh, we can see a full custom rear trunk. I really like it. I have a luggage-themed and custom interior in a vehicle that I own, which I absolutely love. They've done a good job of hiding everything here, which I think is fantastic. You've got your air suspension and things like that, which are noted in the write-up. You've got this little cubby here where you can kind of keep some of your mist and white. Now, because of the engine going in this car, you essentially have an Optima battery. They say, hey, let's relocate it. This is a little pet peeve of mine. I like that they've covered it. If it was me, my preference is store it or stow it if you can somehow behind one of those other panels. I'd love for this to be additional storage to throw some things. But, you know, you can tell from the job that they did is it's very, very nicely done. So kudos to them. They've even went the extra mile. If you look at the bottom of the deck lid, you've got it all matte black. Really, really well done. Engine bay is super nice. You could spend a lot of time, going over this engine bay and doing additional stuff if that's something that you so choose. But I will tell you, to fit a Coyote in here that's a brand new engine is a lot of work. We're going to see some of that here in just a moment. And I will tell you, they've done a very nice job. Anytime you're going to see a fuel-injected modern engine, you're going to have a high-pressure fuel pump, so that's what you're seeing here. Although they did opt to retain the factory-style, a gas tank. The exhaust is done very nicely. One thing that you may notice is that not everybody runs the exhaust under the axle. Some people do, and when they do that, sometimes it's for space. It might be tough to get it, with the air suspension above the axle. I've seen it done. So it can be done, but certainly each car is a little bit different, right? So for whatever reason, they decided to go under the axle. That's not a dig at all. You look how nicely it's done. It looks like it's stainless. Very, very nice. Well done. The kit itself, they don't really mention other than the front, with it being I think the Air Ride technology, tubular control arms. The rear is a kind of a link setup. Maybe not a name brand setup, certainly, but anybody that's been around suspension for a long time can certainly airbag a car very nicely. And I think what they've done here is very nice. They've even added some straps in here, okay, for the front and rear. You don't typically see this on air suspension, but it just helps ensure that the travel of the car only goes to a certain height. So they've done a very nice job. They've also put some bump stops in here, which I think is fantastic. Again, maybe a little bit overkill in some people's minds, but it just shows the quality of the build. We could also see here the cross member, how nice it looks underneath here. Again, the shop that did this tip of the cap to them. We can also see that they have this little piece here, or this is actually the oil pan, but they did put this piece here to kind of help just, clean up underneath it a little bit in terms of the car. The key thing that I always reinforce is you want to start with a good car, and from everything that I can see under the car, it certainly looks solid. We can see the air compressor here where the lines are running. So again, you have air conditioning. You've got a very, very nice setup here. We can see the straps. We can see all the red polyurethane bushings, which is fantastic. The bigger brake kit, which is going to be huge over, if you think about the factory drum brakes, just would be insane to retain. So it's great that they've done all that. We've got a brand new Coyote engine here. We've got, hey, this is what the car looked like. It does appear black, but again, I did mention the color earlier. You can see here it's airbagged on the factory style, the factory wheel covers, and although 62 didn't have a wide white, this is what you see on a lot of cars, because a lot of people, believe it or not, like this look of the factory look with a white wall tire and those wheel covers. Anytime you run a newer modern transmission, typically you're going to have to cut and tunnel, if you will, the drivetrain section. So that's what you're seeing here. I know some people may freak out and go, wow, yeah, it is a lot of work, but it's kudos to the builders to be able to do it in a way that makes it look so nice. You can see here when they get rid of the, what we call kind of the suitcase, if you will, the factory air conditioning, you've got a ton of room in here, and that's what you're seeing, some of the firewall work that they've done. We've got some of the notches for the setup and how the engine's going to sit in there. And it's great that they're showing these photos. I think got to give kudos to them. This car is going to bring some money, and if you're looking to open your wallet and buy a car like this, certainly you want to see, hey, what am I getting for my money? And these guys are giving you the proof, which is fantastic. So we can see all of those photos there. What I'd like to do is, in closing, kind of just reinforce the pros of the listing. This is a very nicely done resto mod. Now, again, I would always caution, if you can have someone look at it, or if you can go look at it, that's the best case scenario. It's not always going to be feasible. I get that. Yes, it has a new, per the listing, 5.0 liter Coyote with a 6R80 automatic trans. If you want the best of the best, brand new, and you're not looking for an original Lincoln, this one might be for you. It does have Vintage Air, which is a huge brand, if not the biggest brand out there for the air conditioning. I mentioned that. It's got a more of a modern style AC compressor. The build receipts, as I mentioned, over $100K, and then digital decoded gauges. What are things to consider with this? Your wallet. That's basically about it. If you think about, maybe having to sell to your significant other, hey, why we need to buy this car, I will tell you, it did, to me, it's definitely impressive. Now, it is worth noting, and I know I'm not sharing my screen at this moment, this car sold in the past for $43,000. Okay, so they bought it when it looked like, let me see here. Let me go ahead and share this again. I meant to mention this. So if I remember correctly, this is the same car because it is the alumni, right? So you're going to say here, if you click here in 2022, so someone spent 43 grand on the car, and this is what the car looked like. So it does kind of look black. If I recall correctly, I went over this one prior. You can see here, actually, this gives us a little bit of intel as well. I was pretty certain that the seats were more original. People often ask, hey, why would you customize one of these Lincolns? Well, if you could buy it for 43 grand, let's say you put 50, 60, you're going to say, hey, Jason, the build receipts are over 100,000. Let's say 100,000 in, they're really banking on this car, for them to make a profit. It has to go for a pretty penny, certainly. Now, there is another right here. It sold in June of 2024, which is less than a year ago, for 123,000. And this is, of course, the deal that fell through. But certainly, this is a very, very nice car. And in my opinion, take a look at it. These cars do continue to go up in value, but this one's going to be specific to someone that wants the best of the best. You could argue and say, hey, the best of the best for me is all original. certainly then hold out for an all original car. Plenty of these cars continue to come to market. But if you're looking for something that is already done, you put the key in, you turn it, or you push button, whatever the scenario is, you get in and drive and you enjoy. This to me is done very, very well. Again, no affiliation whatsoever with this particular builder, but tip of the cap from ODB, the Lincoln Addict. Let me know what you think. What do I think it will sell for? I think it's going to go for over 123. I think someone's going to go, wow, I had a chance before, I missed out. If the right two bidders are out there, they're going to bid this one out. I think it's going to go for over 130K. As it should. If you've got 100,000 in the build and you've got 43,000 in purchasing that vehicle, someone's either looking to liquidate or just go, hey, ready to move on to the next one. Stay on the rise, my friends. Peace out.
Welcome to LA where the players play, and we ride on the things like every day.